Right then, before we start to look at how to produce this particular genre, I first want to introduce some basic music theory. Now, this particular session is going to feature in most of our future tutorials because we've had a few emails saying that when I talk about keys, a lot of people have got no idea what I'm talking about. So this is just going to be a very quick primer for those who know absolutely nothing about music theory. I'm not going to go too deep into the subject. I'm just going to lightly cover the concept of scales, keys, and basic chords. And if this tutorial requires anything further, I'll cover it there. Okay, so here we have a piano keyboard, and as you can see, it consists of 12 notes that are repeated over the length of the keyboard. Now, this repeating pattern consists of the 8 natural notes. These are the white keys of C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. And then we have the sharps, the black notes, which obviously is C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. Now, when it comes to composing a piece of music, we don't use all 12 of these notes. Instead, what we do is we select just 8 to form a musical scale or key. And every compositional element of our music, whether that's the bass line, the chords, the melodies, or anything else, will remain mostly with just these 8 selected notes. Now, I say mostly there because sometimes we may employ a note that isn't in our chosen key just to add a bit of a curveball. But these so-called accidental notes, they're going to occur very few and far between, and in the most, we'll tend to remain with the 8 notes in our scale. Now, obviously, we don't just pick out notes at random to create our music. Over many years, composers figured out multiple combinations of 8 notes that work well in music. And each of these combinations starts with one of the 12 notes on our keyboard here. So, for example, if we choose to start at C here, and we want to work in a major scale, the 8 notes of this scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C, an octave above. Similarly, remaining with a major scale, if we choose to count from D instead, then our 8 notes are actually D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp. And then obviously we have the D, an octave above. Now, alternatively, if we wanted to work in a minor scale and we started to count from C, then our scale will comprise of C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, and then C an octave higher. So where have these flat notes come from? Well, in simple terms, if we count up the keyboard from C, then the note after it here is a C sharp. But if we were counting down the keyboard, then the note before D would be the D flat. Now, of course, it's the exact same note, it's just referred to differently depending on the key we've chosen. And the reason we have this enharmonic system is thanks to the monks and their Gregorian chants. They just thought it was easier to call the black notes sharps or flats because it makes it easier to read and write onto a musical staff. But of course, the big question should be, how do we know the notes that make up each key? Well, there's a few ways really. You can memorise them using what's known as a circle of fifths, or you can memorise what's known as an interval pattern. You can Google it, or just as a quick plug here, you can buy one of our mouse mats. With our mouse mats here, you can see you choose the key you want to work with down the left-hand side there, and then the notes in the scale, along with their order, are displayed left to right. But regardless of how you get those notes, the key you choose will determine how the music is going to emote to the listener. Now, unfortunately, it's not as simple as saying that major keys are going to sound happy and minor keys are going to sound sad because, well, it's not really true. You're going to find that a lot of pop music is written in a minor key and some sad, depressing songs have been composed in a major key. So instead, I feel it's better to say that minor music tends to sound a little more serious or perhaps edgier than a major key. And a major key tends to sound, I suppose, a bit more relaxed. Now, typically for about 80 to 90% of dance music, we'll tend to compose in a minor key. And that's the basics of employing keys in music. See, I said it would be very quick and easy. But what about chords? Well, chords form an essential part of music. We typically compose chords first, and then we can extract the bass line and melodies from those chords using something known as counterpoint. Now, I'm not going to go in counterpoint here because it's a lot of theory, but I do want to introduce the fundamentals of chords. Now, the most basic chord consists of just 3 notes that are played simultaneously. And these are incredibly simple to create because you only have to remember a couple of numbers. The first numbers are the major configuration of 4 and 3. Now, that means that to form a major chord, we're going to start by picking a root note. This is the first note of our chord. And for this example, I'm going to choose D minor. So we'll say I'm working in D minor and I'm going to start my chord on E. As I said, that's my root note there, that E. Now, all I need to do is just count up 4 notes from E on my keyboard. So I have E, then I go 1, 2, 3, 4. There, that takes me to the A sharp, and then I just count another 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, no matter what note I start from, I just count up 4 notes, then I count up 3. The only thing you need to remember is not to count the notes you're currently on. And that's it. And regardless of the key, if we use this 4-3 pattern, we're always going to produce a major chord, even if we're in a minor key. So the question is, how do we create a minor chord? Well, all we do is just inverse the numbers and we count 3, 4. So if I start at my E again there, and I count up 3 notes, I go 1, 2, 3. Takes me to the G, and then I count up 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, which takes me to the B there. So my minor chord would be E, G, and B. Now, in a lot of dance music, it is typical to move, or I should really say progress, between major and minor chords to create tension in the music. So you really do need to experiment with moving between different chords to generate different feels in your music. And that's it. Yes, it's basic, but as I said at the very beginning of this session, it's just an introductory lesson that's going to help you work throughout this tutorial. So let's get going.